Tim Jensen, and he is the host of a podcast called Intentionally Inconvenient. You can find it at intentionallyinconvenient.com. And we are going to be talking about privacy, about cybersecurity, about keeping things safe, but also doing it in a doable, practical way and having fun. Tim created this podcast because of his life experience of having his debit card information stolen. His websites were hacked several times, and in one case, completely deleted. But it doesn't even end there. Tim has had multiple people try to hack in and steal his social media accounts. So Tim started to dig into this area of personal privacy so he could learn to put a stop to these things. And maybe you can relate to some of these things. If you get those emails, those notifications saying someone is trying to log in and hack you, if you get these weird text messages and so on. So Tim has so many fun stories and so much cool advice about what you can and should do to maybe stay off some of these databases, stay off the grid, not get hacked, keep your data, keep your privacy. And he has this really cool concept called being intentionally inconvenient. So we're going to find all about that. So Tim, wonderful speaking with you.
Hey, it's good to speak to you. I don't always get this opportunity. So I'm having a blast already.
Well, love it. So tell us about yourself. What is the elevator pitch? What's the spiel about Mr. Tim Jensen, privacy expert?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. My background's in music. I was a school band teacher for like 13 years. And then I went into sales for another 14 years, mainly in retail. And then I went into philanthropic work where I'm a community organizer, a group organizer. So in all three of those areas, it's more of like an influence and persuasion type area. I can't say that I'm a complete cybersecurity expert, but I'm more interested in just having control of access to myself. And that's how I define privacy, is the ability to control access to yourself. I think that's really, really important that we control access to ourselves because, I mean, let's face it, we have physical property, we have intellectual property, and physical distance that we should be able to control. Nobody should just be able to walk into your house without an invitation, without permission. Nobody should be able to take your intellectual property and just use it without at least compensating you. And physical distance is just a matter of personal safety. So those are the three areas that I talk about as far as and personally identifying information. Nobody has the right, in my mind, to just publish my email address, my phone number, my physical address where I live without my permission and without me signing off on that. So as far as privacy goes, those are the first steps in protecting that, because like you said, I had my debit card compromised where all of a sudden people were spending my money. I had my websites hacked, and I had websites just completely wiped out, just deleted. And you feel very violated with that kind of stuff. So I didn't come into it from the perspective of, oh, I'm going to go study cybersecurity. I'm going to go take on all the bad people in life. My thing was, I just want to know what I can do to prevent those things from happening again. And then when I started to get these emails that said, you've logged in, can you click this link or put in this code to be able to get into your Facebook or your Twitter? I knew someone was trying to hack into my accounts. The one that woke me up to this whole thing was in 2020, where I got a text message that said, hey, Tim, I just accidentally put your login information into Twitter and it sent you a code. Could I have that code, please? Now, I know that I'm not that stupid, and I just was like, leave me alone. And I went back to sleep. But really, dude, 2:45 in the morning from an Indiana phone number, which I know was not his phone number, and you're trying to get my code so that you can just steal my account? I don't think so. But people fall for that kind of stuff all the time, or it wouldn't work. So I know that was kind of a long way around the whole idea of expert, but really it's just a matter of me protecting myself and teaching others to do the same thing.
And we could all use from some of this education. You hear about these stories how the credit unions were hacked, or Facebook was hacked, or some like video game multiplayer platform, like millions of users get hacked. And then when you find out about the story, many times it was happened very easily. Many times it was through this thing called social engineering, like you mentioned. Someone sent
Yes.
a text message and the recipient said just obediently, oh, let me respond with the code. Or this thing called phishing, where an email comes in and it looks like everything looks proper, it looks like it's from Facebook. And hey, did you log in? Click this link, and you click it, and then the web page looks similar, and you enter your details, and then it doesn't go to Facebook, it goes to the person trying to steal your information. And so there's that aspect of it. And then the world has gotten so weird, right? Because it used to be like you make a phone call, you put quarters in a payphone, it used to cost you money, but now so many things are free, right? Google is free, YouTube is free. And why is it free? Well, because they have your data, and because we now live in a world where you go to Home Depot just to buy one little item and they say, hey, can you make an account? Can you give us your email? And we don't even think about it anymore, right? We don't think about the data that we're supplying. And then there's things like there was some news report where someone took a brand new Android phone, like some Galaxy phone, didn't even sign up, left it on airplane mode, and went around town and then like plugged it in, looked at what it recorded, and it recorded like mountains of geolocation and like pedometer steps and Wi-Fi networks. So it's scary how we assume that if my browser's in incognito mode, or if I put my phone on airplane mode, it won't talk to anyone, but they're collecting data all around us. And so, like, what have you seen, or what should people know in simple terms just about how to make sense of this super surveillance world we find ourselves living in these days?
Oh my goodness, Robert! You just talked about 8 hours worth of stuff that I could go through, and I wouldn't even need notes for it. So I used to work when I was in sales. I spent a good 12 years working in the cellular phone industry in a retail store. I was that guy who corrupted the youth of America, so to speak, because I was selling cell phones and tablets and all that kind of stuff. And I used to tell people, we are the most surveilled society uh, in living in the era today where we are the most surveilled that we've ever been. And it at the time, it kind of made me sick, but I was so, because it was my environment every day. You know what? That's what put food on the table. That's what paid the mortgage. So I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. But nowadays, it's just incredible the amount of information that we give away for free under the guise of convenience. And convenience is a huge enemy of privacy. That's where the whole intentionally inconvenient concept came in, because yes, convenience is great. And there are many of my people that I know that, oh my goodness, that's inconvenient. I don't want to do that. And that's fine. But the amount of personal liberty in our country that we give away due to convenience is incredible. And so this is just to leave myself and others to not be vulnerable to that. If we cannot be vulnerable to a technology company that then turns around and sells my location data to the local government because I'm being investigated. There's something called the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution that discusses the unreasonable searches and seizures that our government is not allowed to do without a warrant. So that's how they do an end around, is that they get that information by buying it from a data broker. And who is collecting the data? Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, all of those companies are collecting the data because there's actually more money into the data than there is in the products and the services that they sell. It's all about the money, but unfortunately, we leave ourselves very vulnerable when we start to use those products and services. So I get what you're saying. It's really a big deal. And we don't have time today to go into it. I mean, that would take a whole week's worth of seminar at least to go through everything you just brought up.
And
So, I
and
mean,
but
yeah.
yeah, but it does get us thinking, right? And especially how maybe 25 years ago the big issue was, is it ethical for Microsoft to bundle a browser with their operating
Oh
system?
my
I mean,
gosh, yeah.
such simpler times, but now it's turned into, Microsoft has all this data, Google has all this data, Apple, Amazon, they have tons of data, and you think, well, why was the government not okay with Microsoft 25 years ago, but now these other companies have way more, because now there's an upside for them. Now they can get their surveillance through this end around. And so that's kind of a scary setup. But as far as what we can do, is there like a homework assignment, or are there some easy steps someone can take in the next 1 to 2 weeks to make sure that they're safe and just make sure that they avoid what you have experienced and just have a better lifestyle?
So in the book Atomic Habits, he talks about how making one change a day helps us to be 1% better every day, and that we can be a whole lot better in 90 days time just by increasing that 1%. And so that's the kind of concept that I like to do. One of the podcast episodes that I have are the 5 things that you can do today to increase your privacy. And the very first one that I always tell people, you don't even have to listen to the podcast. Here it is right now. Change your email password. Why is that? Your email gives people so much access to you and how you think and who you are and where you go and what you do. It lists your priorities. It lists your family. Because let's face it, people don't delete their emails anymore. They have 10 to 15 years worth of old emails. I once worked with a person. I glanced down at their cell phone, and there's that little red bubble there by the email, the little envelope. And that little red bubble had over 31,000 unread emails that person had in their email box. Because I know what that number means. I mean, everybody knows what that number means. And that's just the unread emails. What about all the ones that they've read? It was insane. I went into my Gmail and I had over 10,000 emails just in my inbox, plus all the stuff I stuck into folders. Anybody who gets into your email, it's like the museum of you. You can look at that person's life and you can learn so much about it. And guess what? Google reads your emails. They're very overt about that. They've told people. Yahoo reads your emails. I'm guessing, and I don't know this, but I'll bet you Microsoft reads your emails if you use Outlook. To me, that's very private. So I have made this slow migration over to an email provider that is end-to-end encrypted and has zero knowledge encryption, meaning that they cannot read my emails. But even better than that, they cannot reset my password, because those threat actors, those people who are into phishing and so forth, those people that they'll call in and they'll pretend that they're you, and then they'll say, hey, I need my password reset. Well, guess what? This email provider cannot reset my password. You're out of luck, buddy. You can't get in. And that's the thing. So changing your email password. The second thing would be to get a password manager, because I recommend, and everybody does this, people that are near and dear to me do this. They use the same password and email as their login at multiple websites. Well, gee, if you're in a data breach, and those don't just happen every day, those happen every hour of every day. They're reported all the time. I just saw one on last night on the television, on the local news, not even the national news, the local news, about a Roku breach. And they tried to hack it. They got 15,000 credentials from 15,000 different accounts. If you use that same email address and that same password to log into your financial accounts and your email and your whatever, you're vulnerable, because all of a sudden, all they got to do is guess. Well, gee, I wonder if they have a Gmail account. Gee, I wonder if they have a Yahoo account. Gee, I wonder if let's go look at a GPS map of where they might be banking and try to log into that account. You leave yourself very vulnerable if you don't have a password manager and you don't have different passwords at every single website. There's 3 more on that podcast that people can listen to, but those would be the very first 2 things I would do. Change my email password and get a password manager. Make sure your passwords are 20 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers and symbols, and have the password manager create the passwords for you. Or go to random.org and you can have passwords created for you there for free. You don't even need to buy a password manager. Just do it that way. It's very simple to do, but people won't do it. Why? Because it's inconvenient. And convenience is going to be the enemy of our privacy. There's going to come a day where that's going to matter to someone. I guess that's the thing. So There you go. Like I said, if you can get me down to 20 minutes, I'll be impressed.
Right. And we might go a little bit over 20 minutes because it's such a fun conversation, right? The information that we're talking about is more important than the length of time. But even just this on its own, I think I would guess to say most people aren't even aware of these two factors that you're mentioning here. Just this whole idea that when you go and log into your email, that it's right there in the terms of service. You agree to it. You have given permission for Google to read all of your email, but then people say, "Oh, well, I don't have anything to hide." And you say, "But you do. You have all these accounts, and if there was one data breach and all in one of these many hundreds of accounts that you have, it ends up on a spreadsheet on the dark web, and it
Oh yeah,
sounds conspiracy theorist, but it's very easily obtained. And
it's
then there are
real. It's
these,
not conspiracy
yeah,
theory. It's real.
yeah, but it sounds fantastic, but it's like happens all the time, all day, every day. And then there are these basically call centers that go and try these passwords, and they try this email or this login and this password on all these other popular sites because it makes money for them to do the scamming. And then the holy grail, if they do get into your email, they can lost password all these other accounts and then get the new password or reset it and then delete the message. You didn't even see it. And then just kind of it spreads and they get access to more and more things. And so the solutions you're saying here is, first of all, get off those email providers if you can, but then also this concept of a password manager where you can have one login or one master password or use your phone, and then it stores all these other passwords that are long, that are randomly generated, that don't
Right.
have your birthday or pet's name, that are not easily guessed. And
Not
so
that
is
we
it
have.
safe to say that, I mean, we can go as far as comfortable for us as far as the privacy and adding more inconvenience, but I would guess that by just doing a handful of things, by being a less easy target, that gives you a way more. Talking about some of these doable actions that someone could take, especially like changing their password or having a little bit of awareness of where things are being shared. And so can you maybe give us like some final like encouraging words of advice if someone says, well, I'm not sure I have anything to hide, or is it really worth, like, if such and such service asks to send a code to my phone in order to log in? How can we get energized and excited about this idea of being intentionally inconvenient?
So here's the first thing, and that is that no matter where you're at in your level of privacy, you can start today. And it's not, all hope is not lost. It's not even close to that. You can start today and you just make that one change today and maybe make another change tomorrow. And when you're comfortable with that, then you can move on. So you change your email password today, and then you've got the password manager that you are going to order, and then you start saving that stuff in there. Then the next thing you'll do is you'll implement this two-factor or multi-factor authentication. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make it harder and excuse me, harder and harder for a hacker or an unauthorized person to access your online accounts. But in all reality, the bigger deal is not the technology; it's the human element of it. The human element of it, the the phishing, the social engineering, and if you look up social engineering, you'll get a whole bunch of information on that. What we're trying, because people, believe it or not everybody in the world is honest. I know that's hard for some people to believe, but not everybody is honest. Some people will make their living through dishonest means. And we are trying to protect ourselves and our family from that kind of behavior. So we don't need to know all the technology in order to protect our privacy. What we really need to know is our priorities, and then we need to compartmentalize things so that they are separate to prevent our vulnerability. And then we want to try to be as decentralized as possible. We want to be in control of our data. We don't want other people to be in control of our data. So figure out our priorities and then figure out how we're going to compartmentalize our data so that no one entity has too much information. That's why I say the convenience thing is a big deal, because I in one of my podcasts, I list out all of the different services that I could find that Google has, and that just scratched the surface. I could have probably gone on for an hour just naming off all their services. And when that's an all-in-one, do you really want one company to have that much control over you? People can search this on the web, but there was a guy once whose child, a toddler, had an infection in their private parts. And so the doctor, it was a Friday afternoon, the doctor said, hey, I can't get your child in, but why don't you take a picture of the infection? The rash is what it was a skin rash. Upload it to our portal, and then I will be able to at least give you some recommendations for how to treat that over the weekend so the kid's not suffering all week. So we did that. And the long story short of it was he was using a Google device, which automatically uploads your pictures to Google's Drive, and his Google's computers determined it was child pornography. He lost his Google account. He lost 15 years worth of his photos. He lost 15 years worth of his email. He lost 15 years worth of all of his storage forever. And Google decided that they were going to report to the local sheriff that he's a child pornographer. In the meantime, he told them what happened. His doctor verified it, and he still lost that information forever. Now, the sheriff was sent all that information by Google, so he got his photos back, but he still lost all of those calendar appointments. He lost all that history of the email because some other company had control of his stuff. So by decentralizing and compartmentalizing our information, we are able to protect ourselves. We are able to protect our family so that we can have that access without being told by someone. And I'm not even talking Big Brother. I'm not even talking about the government. I'm talking about big tech. We are protecting ourselves from the overreach that these companies have kind of grown into. Reducing our reliance on these things and compartmentalizing all of our services to the different areas, to different companies. You can find a separate company for everything for all of these online services, and it's to your advantage to do so. Again, it's not something to hide. Has nothing to do with hiding stuff. You have to be a social person. You have to be out there. Because we as human beings, that's what we're designed for, is relationships. We're not trying to be antisocial, not trying to be anti-relationship. We're just trying to protect our own stuff. And it's a lot harder these days. Back in the day, if you ever watched the movie Catch Me If You Can, it was about Frank Abagnale. Frank Abagnale was a social engineer. He had no technology, and yet he was able to do some very nefarious things. And he has given public speeches that says it's 400 times easier today for people to do what he did because of the technology. But it's not about the technology. It's about that human interaction. We are just trying to protect ourselves from people who have nefarious thoughts and are trying and motives. And some people are really slick and others aren't. So again, there's that can of worms of all the different things that we have to watch for. I'm not even trying to make people paranoid. I'm just trying to make people prudent. I was told one time that the definition of prudence is knowing the future results of your present actions. And I think that applies here. Prevention is much more important in privacy than reaction, just like in many things. We hear the cliches all the time, but take steps to prevent others from intruding on your privacy. And again, I define privacy as the ability to control access to ourselves, intellectual, physical, and property. Those three things.
And what I'm getting from what you're saying is that the technology has evolved and created all these convenient things, but human stupidity still remains where it was 100,000 years ago or 500 years ago, right? It's like us humans have not evolved with the machines. Like a bunch of years ago, Mark Zuckerberg's LinkedIn was hacked. Well, hacked because someone guessed his password. His password was like right. ... And then it was very easy to guess. So even with all these resources at our disposal, if we make some of these mistakes, then it still doesn't help us very much. And the analogy that comes to mind is that sometimes you hear about when like cars in your neighborhood are broken into and they don't really take anything. They just get the garage door openers because someone parks their car outside and someone can break a window and the garage door opener is right there. And it's a little bit inconvenient if you park your car outside to take the garage door opener out. But if you just don't know about just some of these common sense things, you might not think to do it. and then fall victim to just this very easy sort of technique. And I imagine that maybe even some of these criminals just go and don't even have to break a window. Try all the car doors, grab a garage opener, wait till you're gone. You don't notice the garage door opener's missing, steal stuff out of your garage. So some of these kind of digital equivalents are very easily done. And then it also gives us an idea of how it's boring to look this stuff up, right? To like read books and read articles, but if you're tuning into a podcast where there's fun stories and there's a little bit of the fun that you've expressed and talking about different topics, and like the Frank Abagnale Catch Me If You Can, that's a nice medium, a nice format to learn some of these things, right? Because you're kind
It's
of
all
tuning into a
dramatized.
show.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
dramatized, and they put it out there for people to see. Now, it's Hollywoodized. I mean, things didn't happen exactly the way that they portrayed it, but a lot of the things are true. But it really has to do more so with the human relationship interaction than it does with the technology. The technology has just made stealing easier. Stealing your stuff, stealing your data. And I mean, we hear about identity theft every day. We know the guy who was owner of LifeLock, maybe he still is, I don't know. He had these commercials. Hi, my name is so and so, and my social security number is, and he had blasted all over. Well, guess what happened? And it didn't take long, and they still hacked him. I mean, whatever. It was a stunt and it backfired on him. He also got sued for other things related to that commercial, but we've got to protect our stuff. We've got to protect those who we love. And we do that all the time. We lock doors. Here's the thing. It's the person who accesses your stuff that you don't know. That's the real danger. So when you click that link, and I have clicked these links before. As a matter of fact, just recently I clicked one of these links. Fortunately, it was my company testing our knowledge and the ability to trust or not trust links. And I clicked a link that I shouldn't have. And they said, well, it's a good thing we're just testing this or something like that. But what you should be doing is this, that, and the other thing instead of clicking the link. We do it all the time, and the best meaning people do it. Like you said, Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, when he was owning Twitter, he got his phone hacked into. SIM swapped is the proper term, and he didn't know it for a while until it was too late. This happens to the best of everybody. And you shouldn't feel guilty if you fall victim to a social engineer attack. But what you want to do is take steps to prevent it or slow it down. When I had those emails coming to me saying that, your code to enter Facebook is such and such, go ahead and put that in there. I was glad that I put the second factor of authentication on my Facebook account, or I would have lost it forever. You don't get that kind of stuff back. And so it's the prevention. But more importantly, it's that social interaction and our ability to determine make sure that our BS detector is turned on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And so, and I like also how a lot of what you explain here is in story form, and that makes it fun. And so the Intentionally Inconvenient podcast has all sorts of stories like this. And there was even something that you mentioned to me a little while ago about how you use these password managers to kind of store these sort of misleading identities, like different middle
Aliases.
name or different address, to kind of throw off a lot of the data breaches, which
Let
we
me
want to
explain
send
that for
people.
just a second. Let me
Oh,
explain
yeah,
that.
let's do it. All
So
right.
this is a concept that is a hybrid of different things that I've heard other people teach that I don't think I've heard anybody else use this exact thing. So I recommend you go to a website called fakenamegenerator.com and create about 15, 20, 25 different aliases. It will not only give you the name, it will give you an address, it will give you an ethnicity, an age, marital status, all that kind of stuff. And then you put those as identities in your password manager. Then you can go out and get voice over IP email addresses, and you can use email aliases, which I will teach in the podcast. I'm not going to get into that part of it. And put that information in there so that you can, because not everybody needs to know your real name, your real address, your real phone number, your real email address. So you can create these identities for the businesses that will give you still access to the rewards program. Oh my goodness, rewards programs are a huge data leak. But anyway, if they don't know it's really you, then they can't tag it to you. But at least the aliases, what they do is they're protecting your true identity and your personal information so that doesn't get published on the web. Go ahead and enter your search engine of choice and put your first name, your last name, your city, and your state. Hit search, and you will be amazed at the number of websites that publish your personal data. And I'll bet you don't remember signing a document that says, I give permission for you to publish my data. Not just current data, but past data, your past phone numbers, your past addresses, your past email. It's insane. It's just crazy. And I teach ways to mitigate that, to get rid of that, or slow it down at least. You might not get everything perfect, but then again, privacy is a journey. It's not a final destination.
Right. And we haven't even scratched the surface about when you get junk mail and you're like, I never signed up for this. It's in a database. You Google your own name or phone number, and there's all these public websites that have your information. And even if you don't have a Facebook account, it will ask your friends to fill in all this detail. So it's like even your friends are violating your privacy for you. And it's just, like you said, it's about the incremental progress of every day. If we can do one more thing, just to at least get a sort of caught up with the privacy invasion that has occurred, then we can be on track. And so the Intentionally Inconvenient podcast, can you tell us where to go to see it and just why we should be so excited to check out the content?
So we have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/ if you do a search for Intentionally Inconvenient, it will be right there. Also, the website is the same thing. It's intentionallyinconvenient.com, and that will point you to the podcast. If you're a person who just likes to listen, I like to listen to podcasts while I'm driving or while I'm traveling. You can listen to it. You can watch the videos of it. And then if you go to the website, all the information is there, as well as some of the recommendations that I have for services that you can use. It's not going to be free. Privacy is not going to be free, but free is what got us into this mess, because we have free email, we have free calendar, free GPS. Free got us into this mess. It might cost us money to get out of this mess by paying for our email, by paying for extra voice over IP numbers, but it's a lot less expensive than having your identity stolen. That's really expensive. So you have to weigh the cost about the potential. And I'm not even trying to sound paranoid. There are real stories every day of people who have to pay a lot of money because they used free. There's a reason why I call it intentionally inconvenient. We need to be intentional. And the more inconvenient that it is for you, the more inconvenient it is for a hacker. It's that simple. Hackers use robots. It's not just one person going on their computer and doing all this stuff. They use robots, and it's a regular thing.
And I heard on your podcast that if it's free, then you're the product. And
yes,
like
if the product is free.
Yeah. And I also heard something about how there's, smart locks and there's smart home devices. And some of these guys that are really deep in IT, that are like the cybersecurity experts, they have physical keys. They have metal keys that goes in a lock, because sure, is it inconvenient to reach in your pocket and put a key in a lock versus it just knows it's you from your phone to unlock? It's a little inconvenient, but you don't want someone just walking into your house and there we go, right? You have your special key right there as well. And so you need to tune into the Intentionally Inconvenient podcast to find out about some of this stuff, to know what you don't know, and to just stay ahead of some of this. And so as we're wrapping up our conversation, Tim, we've gone into so many different cool areas, but is there a helpful, powerful quote or lesson that you can share with us just regarding all of this to just make us feel better or make us feel more informed?
Yeah. Wow. Now that's a loaded question. Privacy begins with you. And nobody is more interested in your privacy than you are. The government is not going to guarantee your privacy. The companies that you do business with are not going to guarantee your privacy. If you don't work on your privacy, don't expect anybody else to do it. But the good news is You can start today. And I don't care if you're 25 or 85. You can start today and take the small incremental steps to slowly work on your privacy. It's no different than weight loss or bodybuilding or anything. It's a day at a time. And when you do these things daily, you get a little bit better today than you were yesterday. That really matters. And so, again, this isn't something that you do and it just happens all at once. You pay a fee and all of a sudden, poof, you're private. It doesn't work that way. But it's important to realize you can start today and go forward from there and make it better for yourself. That's the deal. Nobody's going to do your privacy for you. You have to do it yourself. Now, we will be offering a done for you service down the road once we get a little bit more established, but you still have to be engaged and involved in this. There are people who do that thing for the celebrities, for instance, so that their address and their phone number and email is all private. But that person who's having that done for them still has to buy into it. They still have to do these tactics and techniques, which we talk about. So there is hope. I don't want you to think that privacy is dead in society. Anybody who says that isn't telling the truth. I won't call them a liar because I don't believe that. I think that they're just not telling the truth. The truth is you can start today and retake your privacy. And it's just a matter of that little bit every day, those steps.
It's a form of self-improvement, isn't it? It's like
Absolutely.
You might be out of shape privacy-wise right now, but you can build the muscle just by picking up these good habits. And the very first step, the very next thing you should do is go to intentionallyinconvenient.com. Go there. If you find it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel as well. And we've been speaking with Tim Jensen about all things privacy. So it's been wonderful speaking with you, Tim.
Hey, it's been great. I've had a blast, and be great to answer any questions that your viewers may have.
Wonderful.